Live to Bills Mafia Worldwide with Greg Tompsett and Aaron Quinn.
Welcome to the NFL.
Doesn't matter what's happened before today. Today's a brand new day. It's a brand new season.
Your number one podcast for objective Buffalo Bills coverage. No matter where you are, we got you covered.
Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You are joining your host Greg Tompsett and my partner in crime Aaron Quinn. Aaron, I'm back from the desert and I'm excited to talk about large humans with you.
Yeah, I missed you. First of all, it was nice to have Kendall on. Kendall was a nice replacement side piece.
I'm sure he almost did a good job.
Yeah, a good booty call, if you will, for one night. But it's nice to have you, my partner, back. And I'm glad you didn't get roasted out there in the desert. And I'm glad to have you back. Although, I don't know how it is over there in Cleveland, but today here in Buffalo, it wasn't desert because we had the muggy, but pretty roasty. It was not typical Buffalo weather. And I'm in a garage over here, away from my central air conditioning. So if you hear a fan, it's the only thing keeping me alive right now, and it's hot in here. I'm telling you right now. So if I'm more curmudgeon-y, as Lauren said on Twitter earlier, or if I'm in a bad mood, it's this humidity, guys. I'm sorry, I can't help myself.
Yeah, same. It was, I think, 94 here today with the heat index like 102.
Yeah.
We had the blow up pool out for the kids, and yeah, it was a hot one. Yeah. What are you gonna do? So, there's not a ton of new news going on before we get into our preview, but, mandatory mini camps coming up. We joke all the time. It was a major topic in our Cover One staff chat the last couple of days. But, the key questions I always want to ask, all right, did everybody show up? Oh, good. Everybody showed up. That's great. Did anybody get hurt? All right, good. Nobody got hurt. Okay, that's about it. And that, but my normal takeaway is that no good news can really come out of mini camps. Like, you're supposed to look good against air. You're supposed to look good with nobody blocking you. You're supposed to look good when nobody's trying to sack you and you're throwing passes. Like, that's how it's supposed to look.
Right.
Pretty much only bad news can come of it if somebody looking bad in those shorts and t-shirts situations, or someone looking bad.
Yes, EJ Manuels would be something that everyone's like, this looks bad.
Oh, yeah, he bounced one off the hospitality tent.
Right. Everything's supposed to look good. And really, I know Eric just posted an article about some of the routes. I think there's stuff that can be taken away. Like, they're not out there not doing anything, right? The drills, there's a reason behind every single thing they're doing in terms of the X's and O's. But in terms of where I have beef and my frustration in this time of year is taking those are nice routes that they're running. They're working on some of the timing on these things, installing parts of the offense. All of that is fantastic. Like you said, that's all good news, nothing to be reported. When it gets taken a step further of like, this particular player looks particularly good when we're talking about drills and routes, and we're not talking about defensive backs getting in their face. Like, none of this stuff matters. Guys that look good this time of year, that's great. It's not going to matter until we get deep into camp and we start to hear pads and things like that, where the guys are really who are going to be making a push at the bottom of this roster to be on this roster. That's where they're going to make an impact. So I hate this whole like puffing guys up in mini camp. It doesn't really do anything for me. I get people got to write their stories and do things for it, but none of this matters in terms of who's going to make guys aren't winning their job now, I guess is my point.
Yeah, heck, that Sean McDermott says that to guys, like, nobody's making the team off of
don't
what's
try
going
too
on
hard
right now.
Yeah.
Ease into this, get going. Don't get me wrong. Is it good? Is it better that Tavon Austin seems to be super focused and really involved in learning the system? Is that better than him dropping balls and not knowing what routes to run? Sure. But does that mean that all of a sudden, oh man, Isaiah McKenzie and Jamison Crowder are in trouble? No, that's taking things a step too far. And, I joked pre-show, like, I put out one tweet. I was curious, like, what are they going to do with Von Miller? Are they going to have him like completely convert over and put his hand in the dirt and rush? And I kind of liked it that when they were just going through starting defensive line motions, he didn't have his hand in the dirt and all the other guys did. And he was in his crouch position like he likes to get into in that kind of race car stance. And, that's great. I like to see that. Like, okay, that's maybe a little indicator that they're going to be flexible and let him play to his strengths and not necessarily push the other direction. And I would say this time of year, I probably get more takeaways from the press conferences than the videos of the mini camps.
Yeah, I mean, you get a little bit of gems in there. It's really, this is the PR staff for the Buffalo Bills. This is their time to shine.
Oh yeah.
This time of year, because really, sort of like you said, unless you're in a situation like the Cleveland Browns, which thank God the Bills aren't, or some off the field thing comes in and you have bad PR, even like the places where guys are maybe struggling in OTAs, it's not really news. Like even last year in camp, it's blowing my mind now. There was a couple of rookies that were struggling dropping balls throughout camp, and then they went on to have great years. So this time of year, guys are ramping into things. Especially these athletic profile guys, we've seen a lot of takes on James Cook looking good, right?
Yeah,
and he is supposed to. This is a time where an athletic guy should shine.
An explosive guy's supposed to be explosive.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm glad that I'm glad that he fits the part where, oh, hey, I see this on film, and he also looks explosive. It's confirming those things. That's great. None of this matters to me until the physicality of the game adds in to where, okay, he's explosive, but can he play with the physicality of the NFL?
Yeah, and like you said, there are. Don't get me wrong. There are things that can be bad. We're like, okay, that's a problem. This looks concerning, but looking good is what you're supposed to do. So we'll keep an eye on it. Happy to see things going as well as they can. Keep putting out all the Josh Allen and Advisor videos.
Super
good stuff. Really excited to see everything else that's going on. But really, this is just going to be that kind of year. So that time of year.
The coolest piece of content that I saw over the last 2 weeks while OTAs and mini camps have been going on is I forget who posted it. I think it was Tywan Jones and then Bradley Gelber. Tywan Jones posted it to Instagram and Bradley Gelber posted it to Twitter of they were all watching Isaiah McKenzie's performance last night on I think it's America's Got Talent.
Yeah.
And the team was in the room and Josh Allen standing on a table and they're all giving him a standing ovation. And that's the stuff that over COVID, they weren't able to do, that type of camaraderie and having guys in the room together. Two, it showed me a glance at all the stuff that they've been preaching, this foundation that they've built or with the culture and this, that first summer of Sean McDermott having guys open up and tell their life stories and loving. We heard coaches talk about, hey, we want these guys to love each other and family atmosphere. And that one post was like a little glimpse into all this stuff. We're talking all these free agents that come over from other teams and say, hey, this locker room's different. This is really a family atmosphere. You got to see that that's not just press conference fluff that they're talking about, that there's some sincere thing to that where these guys love being around each other and they love supporting each other. And so for me, that was the coolest inside piece that we've gotten over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think there's a new, it's not called Embedded, but I think it's Inside Red and Blue or there's a new one of those pieces coming out with Knox. I love that kind of stuff to be able to see that. And
that's another year for that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm excited for camp when that comes up, the fact that they get to go away and all stay together to be able to do those things. That's really cool to be able to go that route. So
agree there. I don't think going to camp's cool, but we could have that as we get closer to camp. We can have a about that.
Yeah, I like that. We'll get into that debate of what's better, the camaraderie or making everybody sleep in uncomfortable beds.
Yeah.
So tonight's show obviously is focused on the hog mollies. It's the big large humans. The Buffalo Bills offensive line. As we do each show, we're going to go through kind of where everything stands. The Bills have 17 offensive linemen under contract right now for a total of $40 million. They're paying the 13th most in the NFL to their offensive line. And for the first time in a long time, I can't remember the last time, I don't know that any starting position is really up for grabs. I mean, it's possible someone could sneak a guard spot, but the tackle spots are locked in. We got Dion Dawkins at left tackle, 28 years old. He's in the second year of his 4-year contract. So we have this year and 2 more years, which takes him through age 30. He's set up really well to be able to shift into probably one more contract, which is exactly where Mitch Morse is. He's in that exact same time frame, signed one big deal with the Bills, then one more extension at age 30 season. It's going to take him 2 more years here, age 31 and 32. I think that's exactly what we probably see with Dion as he comes up on his. So those two are the only big money players. We've got Roger Saffold signed for a 1-year, $6 million deal at left guard. We know we matched the contract for Ryan Bates with the Bears, 4 years and $16 million. So he's got a huge head start, maybe not absolute lock, but 95% plus that he's the starter at right guard. And then Spencer Brown, a right tackle. And it's weird to have so little in flux with the starting lineup.
Yeah. It's relative, right? Like where got Greg 2-3 years ago, we were on this show talking about how is this team going to turn around this offensive line in a single offseason, because we were talking about one of the historically worst offensive lines in football. And so I think in the, relative to what Josh Allen is lined up in front of, I think going into the season, this is probably the most optimistic I've felt about a unit. With that said, I don't know that there aren't some things in flux. Like Mitch Morse, Dion Dawkins, to me, those are studs. Those are locks. I think Dion Dawkins is arguably top 10 left tackle in the NFL.
He's right there, 8 to 12.
I think, he's on the back end of that, but he's right there. I think you can make the argument of sneaking him in the 10, and hopefully he'll continue that path. I think Mitch Morse is also a top 10 center. I think probably more middle of that.
Yeah, I think, he might be in that 4 to 7 range.
Yeah, and so I think you're good there. I think you have a good, core for your offensive line. And I do think Spencer Brown's not there yet, but I think he has the potential to be in the top 10 of right tackles here in the next 2 to 3 years.
If you're going to bet on someone with historically high traits.
The traits, and he came out and had some nice showing last year as a starter. So, and he got some good experience, and experience was really the major thing he was lacking, right? Having played very little in college and not at all really in high school. So, him gaining experience is only good. So those are really the 3 cornerstones to me of this offensive line, and continuing to go forward past this year. I'm still unsure on Bates. I love the way he finished last season. I thought that was fantastic. If he can take that end of the year, then the optimism for this offense and what I think they can do is really unlimited. The one weakness on this offense last year was the offensive line. Everyone will point to the running game, but that was because of the offensive line.
Yeah.
And so if Bates can be that continued upgrade on the interior offensive line, that's fantastic. Roger Saffold's one I'm also a little in flux on. Like, I like the signing. I like trying to improve that interior offensive line. I don't know how much right now he is an improvement over even Darrell Williams last year. I think, maybe at worst you have Darrell Williams' ceiling, maybe with more consistency, but I don't know if he's that much of a better player. So that to me could be a wash. Maybe you'll get a better player. I'm a little concerned about the injuries that he's been sustaining over the last couple of years. And we'll talk about the backups in a little bit, but I don't want him to get hurt, because it looks again like we'll be dealing with a similar situation to last year. So it's more stable than it's been in the last 2 to 3 years for Josh Allen. It's still there. You said they were paid 13th. I think that's about what they are as an average unit in the NFL in comparison to their peers. And maybe they can get together and put together some really good football. But I still think that at the end of the day, this unit in this conversation is the biggest Achilles heel on this team. It's the biggest thing that could go wrong this year and spin, and snowball, and maybe not for weeks at a time, but in games, like a game like the Jaguars last year, where you go in and your offensive line just gets manhandled, or against the Pittsburgh Steelers, where you just aren't physical enough. You aren't able to get that physical presence established. And Josh Allen, let's not make any bones about it here. Josh Allen made that offensive line last year look much better than they were. Yeah. Eric and the film room guys did a great video on Josh Allen's evasive ratings and
number one
helps that offensive line. We cannot continue. Like, that's great. Josh can do those things. You really can't continue to rely on it. Josh probably only has a couple more seasons of running around in the way he did and taking the types of hits that he did. This unit needs to step up. And that's where we got to talk about Aaron Kromer. I think we're talking about these players. I'm interested to see, because I don't know that the offensive line is a whole lot different than it was a year ago, but what is that impact that Aaron Kromer just being in the building and not having Bobby Johnson there? Where's that impact, and how much does that make this unit go?
Yeah, and I want to credit our guy Joe Marino when he did his show talking about the athleticism of the group and how big of a difference that is. That is speaking to what Aaron Kromer values. He wants athletes that he can train to move the way that he wants, and to get them out in space, to use that zone system. He likes 2 tight ends. He likes that kind of setup. That also is an indicator, in my opinion, of what we could see from that standpoint. So I agree. I think from a starting line standpoint, I think that there's a comment here that Saffold's a little more consistent of a run blocker than Williams. I think
true.
that's accurate. And I think he's probably a similar pass blocker in that both of them are okay. Neither of them are amazing. They're both okay, and Saffold's probably a better run blocker.
Sure.
I think the area where there's potential, if you want to talk about the ceiling for the offensive line, I don't think there's any likely scenario where they become some top 5 unit. But if they want to move into that maybe fringe top 10 area, it's the fact that you have the youth and upside on the right side in that, hey, Ryan Bates has only had 5 games and that's a risk. It also means that there's potential for improvement there that we could see
sure. We don't know
him step forward. Yeah. And then Spencer Brown obviously has one of the higher, if not the highest ceiling of the group in that he's a historically elite athlete who is still coming into his own. There's risk there as well. I think that we've seen there's a baseline floor of pretty impressive run blocker and inconsistent pass blocker. Now, if one of those things are going to translate, a really elite athlete being able to move his feet should be something that translates well, and that hopefully he spends more time with Joe Staley working on that movement and those kind of things. Right. Chris here in the chat was asking, do we know yet which guard spot Saffold and Bates are lining up on? Both played left guard primarily last year. Everything we've seen so far, any clips, it's Saffold on the left and Bates on the right. I don't know that that's written in stone. It's probably an 80-20. It's probably 80% likely that it stays that way. There is a chance that they can pivot the other direction. I actually tried to make the case that, hey, Bates has played pretty well next to Dawkins and he's on a 4-year deal. I'd rather have the older veteran switch over, but I trust their, if this is where they're going to have the best line.
This time of year is also going to be one of those spots where if it's a 50-50 split in their minds, they're going to lean to giving those reps to the veteran where he wants them to be. I think this team really respects veterans. And so if they went in and say, hey, where would you prefer to play? And he says left, then they're going to start him at left, and Bates is going to have to either prove otherwise or, maybe it's not a fit for him. But I think they probably roll with it, Rick Bates at right, and he's young enough to get those reps now where that's only going to be a benefit for him down the road if he puts a full season together at right and plays similar to how he played at either guard position. That just makes him so much more valuable, right?
Yeah. And as we kind of pivot here into the next sections, it's what a lot of the guys we're talking about here. Chris Taroni saying, hey, I do feel like we have top 5 O-line depth. Ron getting into the names here, I feel is pretty solid depth. And I'll say that not only do they feel that way, our man Ross Tucker felt that way as well. He put out a tweet earlier this year after the signing of Greg Van Roten, which we're going to get to here in a minute, and being able to go through. Oh man, CJ, this is awesome.
I know CJ from the Chamber of Commerce days. CJ,
oh, that's awesome. That's very cool.
Thanks
for everyone joining here saying, love your show. First one I've watched live in more than a year. Thanks for all the coverage. Ready for September. You and me both, man.
Yeah, dude. Can't wait.
Incredibly generous of you.
Honestly, I'm ready for July. July.
I'm ready for pads. Just give me pads.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely ready for September.
So as I was saying, Ross Tucker actually put out a tweet after the signing of Greg Van Roten, which we'll get to here in a moment, that the Bills' second offensive line might be better than some teams' starting offensive line, which is sad because that's going back to when the Bills had horrible offensive lines. Because the 5 guys we're about to run through, no team should want that as a starting O-line. But I will say the fact that we have 5 guys, all of which have full starting seasons under their belt. We have 5 guys who all have started a full season as a starter plus some, is a very positive thing. So we'll see where that goes from there. But let's start with the tackles. There's not a ton of depth behind the next 2, but here we have rookie, Tommy Doyle stepping into his second season, last year's 5th round pick, battling new signee David Quessenberry, who is coming over after starting 17 games for the Tennessee Titans, started every single game for the number 1 seed in the AFC playoffs, and was a dominant road grading run blocker. Is probably a guy we don't want extended snaps pass blocking. He did give up 11 sacks, 46 total pressures, which are sacks, hurries, and hits combined. So probably not someone we want in an extended period protecting Josh Allen's blind side. But I will say I'm really excited about the idea of him as a sixth offensive lineman in jumbo sets. You bring in a guy like that to put next to Spencer Brown, who is a proven road grading run blocker, as an extra guy when you need that, 4th and 1 and we're going for it there. Yeah. I love that idea. So
your friend Jeremy White's head must have just exploded if you're talking about bringing in extra linemen and jumbo sets. I think he hates that stuff. But I agree. You know where in preparing for this show and sort of thinking about the show all week, not knowing a lot about Quessenberry and kind of digging into it, to me has a lot of vibes of like the John Feliciano of tackles, right? Like where we don't want him starting, but dang, like as a backup,
yes,
rotational piece,
great
like
comp,
above average, maybe, journeyman offensive lineman. That's really what you want at depth, because, to your point earlier about the depth of this roster, maybe they are a mediocre starting unit, but having that type of depth in this NFL, man, like offensive linemen are a rarity. Like good offensive line play is not prevalent throughout the NFL. And so to have depth pieces with the starting caliber, I'll take it every day. But to me, it just felt like, hey, this guy's like a Feliciano, and gosh, if he doesn't have to start, that's great.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I think, he's also a weird history to look at when people look like, oh, well, he's turning 32. He will right before the start of the season. And then you look back, oh, he's only played 4 seasons. How does that work? Yeah. For anyone who hasn't seen this, David Quessenberry has fought and defeated cancer twice. He's missed entire huge swaths of time battling cancer, and 2 different times come back. So he's drafted in 2013, immediately was found out that he had a cancer, I believe lymphoma, but I don't want to misquote. And then missed, 4 seasons worth battling cancer, coming back, getting back into the physical condition to do that. Yeah. Then had a recurrence in 2018, missed that entire season again, as well as most of the 2019 season, worked his way back in, and then has been able to play the last couple of years. And like I said, last year started every single game for the number 1 seed in the AFC. And to sign that guy is kind of a nice to have add-on, who was a every game starter for Derrick Henry. That's a nice luxury to have in this situation, that you have that kind of guy to bring in. And like I said, I'm excited about that one little niche role, but now bringing in a guy that, had 1,200 snaps last year to now just be a backup plan is nice.
It was, just to confirm for you, it was non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Okay. That he had, and then in 2017 he won the George Halas Award, which is given to a player, coach, or staff member who overcomes the most adversities to succeed. If you don't know Sean McDermott by now, and that how much that type of stuff matters to him, and I guarantee you that story will be told at training camp in front of the whole team, and that type of, like, just Sean McDermott just loves that type of player. And so the fact that he is also a guy that is not just, hey, this is a great story and we want to have this type of DNA, but also you have the experience to go with it. And so it seems like a perfect marriage of, hey, we needed last year. That was a huge issue of not having that swing tackle. I thought missing Ty and Secchi was a huge deal for this team last year. So somebody's got to step up into that role. And to me, he's the favorite going into the training camp to take that role for this team this year.
Daryl brings up one question here. I am interested. We talk a lot about the historic athletic profile for Spencer Brown. Tommy Doyle was pretty ridiculous as well. Yeah. What he put up. So I am excited.
He was tight end 3, but we can have those conversations about swing tackle.
I even half joked about, hey, maybe he becomes the Lee Smith. Just make him a full-time blocking tight end. Sure. So I am curious to see where that goes and what Cromer can do with his profile and specimen. But again, having someone like Quessenberry as the, that safety net at tackle is really nice. And the fact that Tommy Doyle is your 4th tackle, that's a luxury. Like you don't get in a lot of situations there where he looked passable in situations and has some developmental opportunity, and he's your 4th tackle and likely your game day inactive on most days. That's a great situation to be in. So
better than the situation we were in last year where it was Bobby Hart. Right. So
I wasn't even going to bring him up. I was going to see if I could go the whole show without saying his name. So as
you got to talk about your boy Tsunada or whatever.
Yeah. So the other tackles here, you have rookie Luke Tanada. To not going to be here that long. To not going to talk about him is what we're going to not do. So obviously 6th round pick out of Virginia Tech, Luke Tenuta. We've got him there. We've got Tanner Owen is also floating around there. I think that Alec Anderson and Derek Kerstead will be in the other practice squad, but Luke Tenuta is a guy that I would be flabbergasted if he earns a get active roster spot on the 53. But again, nice opportunity to bring a guy along on the practice squad and certainly see where that goes to develop in there. The same thing, Tanner Owen, maybe super outside shot at a guard spot, but again, with the recent signing we'll get to here in a moment, I really do not see a path for a UDFA right now without some out of nowhere story out of this group.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Okay. So the next one that comes up is probably, so the swing tackle battle is interesting because of who is game day active and not.
Right.
But both of them are pretty much locked for the roster. Quessenberry and Doyle are going to be on the roster.
Yeah.
The next one, our interior offensive line, has some intrigue to it because we've got 3 different guys who all have a chance to take a stab at it, and that's not including our man Ike Bacher, who went at it before. So the names here, Ike Bacher is a guy that I'm not going to consider with a primary shot at going here because of coming back from an Achilles is really tough, especially when you're a big guy. I think he's an easy pup candidate to hide for the first 6 weeks. And then if he's ready, then you bring him along. If you have an in-season injury, that's a nice backup plan. But I don't know that I see him ready here. I think it's going to be between Greg Mance, who was signed most recently from Miami, had a full starting season at center from Houston, but had plenty of games back and forth. Of course, our old faithful Cody Ford, and
Cody Ford.
Then our most recent signing, Greg Van Roten, who had 3 years with Carolina when Bean and McDermott were there, and then the last 3 years with the Jets. Again, probably maybe a slight notch below that Feliciano Quessenberry comparison, but again, a decent player when he's played. Not terrible. He hasn't been the worst lineman on a line, but is nice as a backup plan there.
Yeah, probably below average journeyman.
Correct. He would be a below average starter for sure. Would be our worst starter on this line. But that's an interesting group there where you have each guy has some flaws in Van Roten, Manson, Ford. Each guy has some, areas of strength. I think it's going to be Greg Mance having the highest likelihood of making it just because he can play center and guard and has the most flexibility. I don't know that Van Roten can't, but I don't see any history of taking snaps at center. I've only seen reps. PFF only has him. He has 1,700 reps at left guard, 1,400 at right guard, 4 years with starting experience. He's played 700 plus snaps each of the past 4 years, but all of them at either left guard or right guard.
Yeah.
So I would, and I keep being wrong because he keeps staying on the roster and finding ways to hang around. I would rank it Mance, then Van Roten, then Ford, and Ford would be the guy who would get dropped.
Man, you're keeping 9
as soon as Botger is there. So I think Cody Ford might be on the outside looking in.
Yeah, we're assuming it's 9.
I think so. I think there's too much depth at other positions. They've had years with 10. They have done 10 before.
Right.
I think it's going to be 9.
Yeah. If it is, maybe Bean just holds on to this investment too long. He's not perfect, Brandon Bean. He's done more good things than bad, and we love him, and I want to build a statue of him. I love him very much. But probably one of his flaws is going to be a guy like Cody Ford, where he hangs on to that idea too long. So I see a path for him to make this roster, but when you're just talking about this on paper, to me, it makes sense to go with Mance and Van Roten. Van Roten, to me, seems like, Ike Bacher's not going to be.
Yeah.
I've read Van Roten, so Chris is saying I've read Van Roten can play center.
Maybe taking some snaps there in practice. No game reps, but maybe he has the opportunity.
Yeah, I think the experience Mance has is going to give him that. I think that one to me is a lock as a backup to this team. Having that type of swing flexibility, the team loves that. They're going to love the experience and the reps. And to be honest, like we're saying, we're talking about depth, if you're even a below average guy sitting in the depth, that's great depth in the NFL. Like you're never going to have, unless it's a rookie coming in and you haven't quite gotten them, your backup offensive lineman guys are going to be journeyman dudes that have just not really been able to hang on any roster, solidify a starting job. That's okay. And so I think Mance is definitely a lock. And Vin Rotten, to me, really this would be Ike Bacher's role in this offense. I think that he would win this job if he was healthy, but we're talking about the pup list. Like this might linger. We might not.
There's no guarantee. Achilles are scary things.
Yeah. He might not be able to ramp up towards the end of the season. And they might be comfortable enough with these two guys here where they just, hey, we're going to keep Bacher around, watches progress, watches therapy, watches training, and maybe we'll bring him back again in the future because we like this player in the building. But to me, it's going to be those two with Cody Ford really on the outside looking in. And maybe Aaron Kromer unlocks the thing that everybody saw in Cody Ford when he was drafted, and he can have a really nice summer, but he's only going to have like 5 weeks to get that job and solidify it for that backup role. So that's going to be one of the more interesting battles to watch in terms of depth. We talked about that tight end 3 battle a couple of weeks ago. I think this is right there with that and who's going to win that last spot in this interior offensive line. And if I'm putting money on it, it's not on Cody Ford.
Yeah. So we'll see where that goes. And I know Chris here was talking about Jets fans making fun of him. Don't get me wrong. I don't think he's great. And we tease about PFF grades. He was graded higher than their first round pick, Elijah Vera Tucker. So, I don't know that he was a disaster in what was happening there. So, Charles bringing up here an interesting thing. Tommy Doyle did get some reps at guard. I thought that was interesting.
But
that's Aaron Kromer has a history of that, forcing guys out of their comfort zone just to be able to have had some time on task,
understand the experience of what everyone's job along the line is and things like that. So, but you never know.
Yeah, I think that was way more correct. I love a good non-zero chance. I think that was way more science experiment than impending transition or anything that was coming. He's a tackle. 6'8" guys with long arms are not guards. There just are not any of them. Literally, there are none of them in the NFL. To let you guys know, this started an entire debate in our Cover One staff chat when it happened, to the point where Eric and I started researching who were the tallest guards ever in the history of the NFL to get reps. And there's a very small list at 6'7". A very, like, Eric Steinbach was a good one with the Bengals for a period of time, but like a really small list. And then there's a good handful at 6'6". Most of them are 6'5" and below. But the list at 6'6" and 6'7" are really short. And there's literally none that have played at 6'8" and ever been any starting caliber player. So, not that it can't happen, but it would be a historic anomaly for them to convert him into a guard. The battle there, I think you're spot on. I think that Greg Mance is by far the most likely of the group there, just because of his versatility, having that starting center experience and being able to step in immediately in that role. I do think that Van Roten is a very likely path from that standpoint of being able to be in there. And I think that, we'll see. Maybe Aaron Kromer can work some magic and Cody Ford can really take a strong step forward to be able to move, because he does obviously have some athletic traits and some initial tape that made him the high draft pick that he was ahead of those other guys. But, we talked before about some of the things. One of the other topics we had brought up, cut down day trade candidates. This has been a historical trend for Brandon Beane, and the loser of the battle that we're talking right here, I think, is very much in play, where we know linemen carry great last minute value in this market.
Guys are going to get hurt this summer.
Yeah, these are the guys that teams are willing to give up a future late round pick for. So I will go out on a limb here and say the loser of this battle, the guy who comes in 10th out of this 9-man race, will be traded. I think that we will see an offensive line trade by cut down day that moves one of Greg Mance, Greg Van Roten, and or Cody Ford, or if Ike Bacher is back, maybe two of them. I think Bacher would make it. He would leap to first out of these four if he was healthy. So we're going in with the approach that he will need more time. And I think Chris had a good reminder for me that it's actually a 4-week pup, not 6 anymore. But let's say he is healthy.
That Achilles was like
late season
time.
Yeah,
right?
late season.
Yeah, like right before
late
the Christmas
season.
game. Yeah.
So again, it would be pretty shocking if he's available and ready. I know we did see it last year with Cam Akers, but Cam Akers is a different body type and size and a different athlete than what Ike Bacher is. So we have seen it. The
and Cam Akers was not great when he came back too.
Correct.
Like that is an example of a guy coming back fast, but you also want a guy to come back and be close to where he was before that injury if you're going to bring him into the active roster.
Yeah, so we'll see. And I know Dwayne brought up here, I don't know if we can handle trading another teller. Just as a reminder that Brandon Beane has traded, I believe, 6 offensive linemen in these cut down day trades and training camp trades. One of them did go poorly. 5 of them, he just got free draft picks for guys that we were going to cut. So
and Wyatt Teller's not on this roster. Like,
correct.
Wyatt Teller.
I do not believe any of these backups are Wyatt Teller.
No.
So I think our ranking is there. I think we would put Ike Bacher first, but since he's not considered, Greg Mance, Van Roten, then Cody Ford.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And so, what are we getting for Cody Ford? Like a
I think it's a future 6. Yeah, future 6. Yeah, 7. Yeah. That's the going rate. And I mean, you got to remember that he's gotten, Russell Bodine got a 6th round pick. I want to. Who's the?
Is it bad that I felt like Russell Bodine had more value going in being traded at the time?
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
Cam. Oh, who is the player that not Mayweather, but to come to me. The name of the player that we traded was to Carolina, and it was for like a multiple years ahead pick that like just paid off last year. Marshall Newhouse. Newhouse. He got a pick for Marshall Newhouse. We've had guys who I believe are lesser talents than Cody Ford who have gotten a draft pick. So he's found a way to do this several times. And yes, of course, it stung to get a 5th and a 6th for Wyatt Teller. But again, that was a guy that none of us were calling for making the roster. None of us were clamoring and saying, "Oh, I'm sure
there were some people on Twitter that'll pull up their tweets of how much they love."
I can't believe you're trading Wyatt Teller. Everybody's like, "Oh, good. I can't believe you got something for Bodine and Teller while we were going to cut them." So we'll see where that goes. But I do think that kind of ranking it in that order, we'll be able to go there. And like Dwayne said, we love 6th round picks. Yeah, the Bills love having 6th round picks.
Love them.
So that kind of wraps it up here. We do, again, I was a little intrigued before the additional signings here of seeing could Alec Anderson, Derek Kerstetter, Tanner Owen. I know our guy Steve Mathis on the Air Raid Hour really likes Derek Kerstetter. I was very intrigued by Tanner Owen and kind of the elite athletic profile that he had there. So, I'm always open to the potential of that path, but I just don't know that there's any route for any UDFA to make this roster this year. This is far too talented. It would take a shocking meteoric rise from that UDFA and an injury we're not expecting at a position to create an opening. And I just now with the 10 guys in front of them, the 10 veterans in front of them, 11 being Ike Bacher, I don't see a path for UDFA at offensive line.
No, I don't. And this is going to be an easy one to just pull in on the practice squad. This is something we talk about every year where people are worried you're not going to get these guys back in the building. I think that offensive line is a pretty easy spot to stash some guys. So it's a perfect place for them with Aaron Cromer here to take a year, maybe 2 and learn. And I don't know that it's so too talented of a group, but I think there's too much experience ahead of these guys where even if the talent is similar or the UDFA has maybe a little more athleticism, you like that idea. I think this coaching staff, and they know what's at stake this year, right? Like they're going to roll into the active roster with a mix of obviously the best players they can get. But if it's going to come down to an undrafted free agent with that athleticism or a guy with experience, and it's not a huge difference, they're going to go with that experience because that's going to matter come some of these big games. That guys have experienced this. They've been in these games before. They've started on offensive lines before. That's going to be all the difference in the world. And I think protecting Josh Allen's the number one priority, that they've talked about that. They're not going to throw out, they have Spencer Brown, who's still a project out there, and they're going to let that athleticism do its thing. They're not going to take too many chances along this offensive line, because one injury totally derails some of this depth that you're talking about, right? Like, you have to plug in a Greg Mance, and now you really get pretty weak in that interior offensive line depth. So I think they're going to go with that experience over these young guys. And I just can't see a path for any of the undrafted guys, but that doesn't matter. It'll be fun to see them on the practice squad and see them continue to grow. Let
them develop, let them come along. If it turns into future depth, that's where we got Bakker. That's where we got Ryan Bates. That's how they came about these guys.
Yes, and we don't have a lot of age. Saffold's not a long-term solution, right? And Morse's injury history is legit. Like, that could end up, even though he's younger than people think, that could end up being a thing at some point. But I think continuing to fill your well with developmental traitsy offensive lineman that's a good problem to have, especially the Bills know they're going to be picking deeper and deeper in these drafts, and they're not going to be able to get the top end talent. So they got to get guys like this in the building and see if they can make something out of it.
Yeah, next year, interior offensive line is a strong draft need for me. But Dwayne asked a good question here. I'd be interested in where you guys would grade our line as a whole, 1 being horrible, 10 being best in the league, 1 through 10. I'll let you go first.
Like a 4.8, 5. Like, I think they're going to be right there in the middle of the road overall, the overall unit. I think they got some top end talent, but I think the overall unit's going to be, I'll say, a 4.8.
I'll go a little bit higher. I would put them as a 7. I think that would put them in that. I think they're closer to that 10 to 12th range with the whole, especially the whole unit, like with the depth included and everything that's there. I don't think we have any crazy, superstar players. We have a bunch of guys like we talked about. Dawkins is probably 10th to 12th. Morris is probably 4th to 7th. Brown has upside, but he's certainly not anywhere in the above average range. Maybe Saffold still has one more year. I mean, I know
I'm hoping, right?
He made the Pro Bowl off reputation last year, not because he was a superstar.
If he can regain some of that, I'm with you. Like, if that interior offensive line is fixed,
and if Bates is a whole season of what we saw for 5 games,
then I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
I don't know if Bates is going to be consistently able to play the way he is, and I don't know which Roger Saffold they're getting. I'm hoping it's the one that pushed for Pro Bowls, and played at a Pro Bowl level. At the very least, I'm hoping for just a little better consistency out of that position. But to me, that interior is still the difference between them being a 4 to 5 and being a 6 to 7.
Yeah. So we'll see where it goes. I think that there's potential for it here. And again, we always have to remember, as Aaron brought up, Josh Allen makes any offensive line in front of him look better than what they are. So part of that is it doesn't particularly matter. He's going to make any offensive line look pretty good.
He's going to be hard to sack if you get pressure.
But they gave up a lot of pressures last year, and a lot of those same guys are here again. So I don't know that we have some, whatever
Josh's
2016 Cowboys line, ready to come out here.
Yeah, no, for sure. And Josh Allen's a difficult quarterback to block for, too. There is some of that baked into it, that because he has the ability to move and extend plays, like, that is a difficult thing to block for. He still does take a little bit of time sometimes to process something. So there's a little bit of that is on Josh Allen as well. But yeah, he's difficult to bring down. He performs so well under pressure that I think that we forget some of the bad plays from the offensive line. Yeah.
So Steven here asking, our guy Joe Marino thinks this is the best O-line Allen has had. Yes.
Yeah, that's what we started the show with.
A 7 is the best offensive line Josh Allen has had. Yeah. Both those things can be true. This can be the best line he's had, and it could still be, like I said, at the upside, a 7, at a baseline, a 5. Right. That is the best offensive line he's had. That can, both things can be true.
Yes. It's been the Achilles heel of the offensive side of the ball since they got here. They've added a lot, and they've rebuilt well, and they've definitely addressed the position, but
the depth is a big improvement.
The depth is very nice. But yeah, there's not a lot of top end talent here. They haven't quite got that position right. Hopefully they will. Like, hopefully if Bates plays at the level he played at, then I'm feeling a lot better about this, and that's really the unknown right now.
Yeah. So we'll see where that goes. I'm still curious to see it, but ultimately We're excited about where this team is going. We're going to continue on with you guys for the rest of this offseason, being able to go through these position previews. Next week will be our last one from an offensive standpoint, and maybe even starting into a little bit of the defense of where things are going. So looking forward to that. We'll be going all the way up through training camp, keep chipping away at these each week. We have some exciting things coming at Cover One. Make sure that you're checking out everything that we have going on at cover1.net on the website. Some exciting announcements and some new additions coming to the staff coming up here that I think you guys are going to be excited about. Make sure you're checking out all the other shows that everybody has going on. Aaron talked about the cool breakdown Eric did of one of the routes that we saw in camp today. Did an awesome video with the top 5 throws from Josh Allen last season. Make sure you're checking out all the other guys on Air Raid Hour and Roundup and Disguise Coverage, the Film Room, everybody going on Going Deep, all the other guys across the board. Make sure you're checking out what we have on. Aaron, what do you have going on for the people?
Yeah, man. Well, first of all, thank you, Dad.
Lee, appreciate you, man.
Appreciate that, man. Always full support of us. Yeah, no. One, I'm just trying to survive. It's graduation week here for my little guy. He's graduating kindergarten.
That's right.
Big time happening here. Lots of neighborhood kids running through the house. So I'm just trying to keep my head together and survive this summer. But other than that, really excited. Like you said, I'm so excited for the things that we're doing here at Cover One. We've built a really nice team. I love working, not just with you, Greg, but with everybody here. It's hard to be a content creator. I talk about this all the time, but when you work with people that push you, some of the content that the guys make pushes me to want to be a better content creator. And we've just, we formed a really good team where everybody works with each other, and we're adding to that team and adding some talent, guys that I've been following for a long time and I like a lot. So I'm really excited to see them adding to what we've already built here at Cover One. So I hope that you guys are as excited about that as I am. Make sure that you're becoming a premium member, right? Like getting in that Slack channel, getting this premium content. We're going to be really pushing out a lot of the premium content. So you're going to want to make sure you're in there. Other than that, just look forward to what we're doing because it's going to be a really exciting year here for us at Cover One. And hopefully that translates to you guys consuming more of the content that we put out, and know that it's appreciated.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys very much. The chat was awesome today. We appreciate you guys a ton. But with that, I am Greg Tompsett. On behalf of Aaron Quinn, you've been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we are out.